Hey there everyone, this is Jeremy, the Music Andy, and we're here today to talk about Hygiene from Drug Church. This is album number 4 for the 5-man group making post-hardcore alt-rock punk from Albany, New York. Drug Church is a group, despite being in the hardcore and punk scene, two scenes that I find myself being a part of musically. I never really heard of them. That is until I started working in a flower shop and a good friend of mine introducing me to them. This is a band that is full of power chords. They got deep riffs that have very danceable grooves to them. They also put their foot off the pedal and allow for more melodic moments to kind of create. And while doing all of this, they try to keep their tracks for the most part under 3 minutes. These are more fast, aggressive tracks, kind of sticking to that more post-hardcore sense of music. This is a band that is just full of power chords. It has some very deep, groovable rhythms to them. And for the most part, they try to keep their tracks under 3 minutes, kind of sticking to that punk sense of music. Guitars have moments of being very gritty with some simple gain and distortion, and then having those melodic moments that are just kind of soaked in chorus and reverb, adding some very interesting and contrasting tones to each track. Pat on vocals kind of goes from unapologetically yelling, screaming, really adding a lot of grit and bashfulness to the track, to slowing it down and adding very nice soft melodies to it, being a lot more clear and directing through the tracks. And for the most part, if you are a fan of the band already, you're going to be a fan of this album because for the most part, they're sticking to what they already do well and just kind of adding on to it. The sound that this band has overall is just kind of a staple, and it's not something that's really going to be shaken on this, but they are very bashful, they're very gritty, they're very snarky, and they're not afraid to show it. And the instrumentation kind of leaps forward on this one, adding a little bit more of experimental moments on this album. Grooves kind of feel more developed and less rough and less jammy. The tones are a lot more varied. There's a lot more experimentation and technique being played on the guitar and bass. When the first track, Fun's Over, got on, I thought that the band was going to kind of stick to their old sound and that Pat on vocals was going to take a more different approach. It started off with a much more chorus, reverb, delayed approach on the vocals, but soon Pat goes to his signature loudmouth ways and just saying what he needs to say, and he wants you to hear it. The guitar and bass might have started on the same foot as previous albums and others work from the band, but soon the guitar is let loose a little bit more as the drums and rhythm and bass just kind of hold it down a little bit better. The guitar, while being let loose, is kind of whirling. It's kind of just crying in the background. It's being waved all around, adding a little bit more urgency and frenzy to the feeling of the track. This is a nice opener that offers only a small taste of what's to come from the band. Super saturated transitions very well coming from the last track. These two kind of bleed into each other, and it's just a very easy, seamless transition. And it adds a vocal melody that is going to be the one that is sung at concerts in the foreseeable future. The dirt under your nails, the proof that you've been here, let's add up your wrongs, a rabid mob audits who you are. Pat, from these lyrics, my translation is very fed up with the way that he is perceived from other people, whether it be them calling him a poser, having that dirt under the nails, being proof that he's been here, or just everybody only bringing up the wrong that he's done in his life, kind of deciding who he is and not who he has become. I love the writing here. The melody and groove is very supportive in this. It just is a very nice song all the way through. One of my favorites on the track. Very easy and enjoyable start to finish. Plucked for me serves as a continuation from the last track. The groove and the feeling of it is kind of the same, and it's leading you into a halfway point of this track that just kind of gets let loose. There's a guitar that comes busting in that really just kind of captures my attention. And then we have this little glitched out section, either from a guitar or a synth. I'm guessing a guitar because there's 2 guitars, a bass, a drummer, and a singer in this band. And it's an idea that I wish they kind of played with a little bit more. There's a big amount of experimentation going on here. There's some tones that I've never heard from the band, but them just bringing it in and just letting it leave there is fine by me, even though I wish they ran with it a little bit more. Million Miles of Fun is a track that's not one of my favorites. I heard it as a single, had a friend show me it. It's a track that's very ghostly on the vocals. They're very haunting. And the instrumentation, if this makes sense, almost feels like a carnival of despair going on. I know that probably doesn't make that much sense, but please believe me, it's the best way I can describe it. Just go and listen to the track and you'll probably feel the same. Detective Lieutenant has some simple lyrics through this. Don't turn your back on the ones that you love, the things that you love. Take accountability for who you are as a person and try not to get caught in the dramas of life. Simple grooves and easygoing guitars are on this. The constant flipping between more aggression and more melodic moments add a nice contrast to this. There's some nice tonal instrumentation going on. It's just an enjoyable listen all the way through. Now with Tiresome, we hit my favorite part of this album, and that is the back end of this album, which I think is the most experimental side of it, and it's the most catchy side of the album as well. Tiresome has my favorite drums on this. They said, forget the snare, forget the cymbals. I'm sticking to the floor toms and the bass, and I'm just going to let the rhythm carry it out. And that's absolutely what this track does. It kind of is switching between a lot of tones. There's some dynamic changes in it, but for the most part, the rhythm section is very solid. It's very chugging along. The guitars that are crying in the background of this track kind of add the menacing feeling that's going on with this track, and it's becoming more and more prominent as the energy and intensity is paced throughout it. But I will say, I do have a complaint on this track, and that it does a fade out at the end. It does a fade out and then a rebirth into a new song, but just having a fade out is something that I'm not typically a fan for. Just give a song the ending and move on to the next one. Now with that laser guitar that's leading us into the next song, World Impact, this is a track that has a very heavy beat down feel on it. Pat to me feels like he's going to be crawling out of my headphones and just socking me in the face for letting others make me feel bad about myself, which is a fine thing. Thank you for sticking up for me, Pat, and letting me stick up for myself. Premium Offer is a track that brings back those ghoulish vocals that Pat was kind of experimenting with earlier in the album. And the instrumentation on this track is very, very loose. There is no floor on this except for the bass player just kind of playing root notes and kind of chugging along. But for the most part, everything is loose. This drummer feels like he's in no man's land. The guitars are just kind of whirling around, and the melody doesn't really match anything. But when you bring everything together, everything is super supportive, and there's a lot of synergy working on this. Piss and Quiet, as described by one of my friends, is a track that sounds like if Green Day was a little bit more hardcore, a little bit more grit and bashfulness. The rhythm that's on this track is constantly being skewed and thrown around, and every single time it feels like it's going to get up and start running, it just kind of resets. I'm seeing this band in 5 days, and I know that this is the track that the pit is going to open up, and I'm going to be diving in head first into this song. Then we have our closer, Athlete on the Bench, which is probably my favorite track on this. When it first started up, I thought the album finished and that a Cure song was playing on my playlist with this jangly guitar that was being played at the beginning. But once I heard the bar chords, I knew that I was safe. The main hook that's being played on this guitar is electric. It's exuberating fun and carefreeness as the bass and drummer just kind of hold each other tightly, trying to keep everything maintained and safe on this track. We got Pat telling us that the only feeling of stress is from masturbation and that we've been starved since we left our mom's tit. What more could I want in a song? Overall, this album has a lot of feelings of being yourself, accepting who you are and not apologizing for it. You may have messed up in your life. There may have been a lot of things in your life that have been messed up that are out of your control. But if you want to change any of that, you're going to be the one to do it. And Pat's not afraid to say it and be that kick in the ass that you need. Though despite having this pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, in no way is Pat saying that he's invalidating any of these experiences of the person, saying that they're not just in feeling down or having self-loathing, but you still need to get up and change it. I like the themes, I like the danceable grooves while still staying a hardcore album for the most part. I'm thinking 8.1 toothbrushes or floss out of 10 on this one. What did you think of this album? What albums would you like me to review in the future? Please leave a comment below and let me know. Subscribe if you like the content, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Please check out this album.